Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Cotton Grower Magazine's Cotton Companion Podcast. This is Jim Stedman, editor of Cotton Grower, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and colleague, Beck Barnes. Well, it's July and it's hot. All the cotton that was able to be planted is in the ground, and with a good percentage already to the squaring stage and beyond in some places. That means focus is shifting to nurturing and protecting this year's crop. So it's a busy time for growers, consultants, and farm crews who are working to keep weeds and insects under control and certainly start timing those fertilizer and PGR treatments. Now, as usual, we understand weather has impacted final planting and replanting in some areas. And as we're recording this episode, we're still waiting for USDA's planted acres report just to see how early season acreage projections line up with this season's reality. We'll have those numbers to discuss with you in our next episode coming up here in a few weeks. But it is time for the July 4th holiday, and we certainly hope everyone's going to have an opportunity to relax and celebrate a bit with friends and family. Beck, any big plans in store for the Barnes family?
You know what? Big plans, no. We do have Jim, we have a neighborhood, one of these East Memphis, very popular here in East Memphis, neighborhood, what would you call it, parade, where we got, the fire truck comes and sprays water on everybody, and there's a little petting zoo, and all the kids get out on their bikes. And typically the dads on my street man the grill and flip burgers and dogs for everyone. But I have not gotten that text from the neighborhood dads. I think I did burn some burgers last year, and I think
You think you burned some bridges on that?
Burgers and bridges. Yeah, I may have been excluded, which is it's gonna hurt my feelings, to be sure. But yes, so we'll be doing that. I will either be on the grill or I'll be pushing my toddler on her little Strider bike in the parade.
Well, that sounds that sounds good. We'll be making our annual trek up to my wife's family farm in Northwest Illinois for the week and check in on things up there, and weather permitting, have our own grand little fireworks celebration. So it's always a good time just to kind of get away.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be a good one. Good time for emergency room.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, busy weekend in the emergency rooms across the country.
Yeah, we certainly hope not.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, before we move ahead with this episode and some other items of interest, we got a message here from the American Cotton Shippers Association. They've got a brief message they'd like to share.
The American Cotton Shippers Association, also known as ACSA, is a trade association primarily made up of cotton merchants. Founded in 1924, ACSA members manage the majority of the world's cotton trade, providing services of merchandising, delivery, logistics, and risk management to their customers. For more information on ACSA, including their current advocacy efforts, view their Twitter account @CottonShippers.
Okay, as always, a special thanks to our friends at ACSA who are celebrating their 100th year this year. We thank them for that message and for their support.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, it's a busy time for growers right now in terms of crop management, including weed and insect control. And following some delays in early season herbicide applications and subsequent rains, we understand there may be some woolly fields that some of you are having to deal with. And you're not alone in that battle. In today's episode, we're making our annual visit with Dr. Larry Steckel, who's University of Tennessee Extension weed specialist, and I caught up with him following his recent weed tour. We looked at some clean research plots, some pretty messy plots, and everything in between regarding current herbicide programs and studies with some products that we could potentially add to the tool belt here within the next few years. That discussion with Larry is coming up right after these items of interest.
Okay, Jim, yeah, earlier we alluded to some of the progress being made with this year's crop. For the week ending June 23, the USDA crop progress numbers show that squaring is reported in 30% of the U.S. crop. And 30% of the U.S. crop has been planted, just slightly ahead of the 5-year average for this time of the season. We've talked before about how early this crop seems to be, and numbers show that, as 10 states are currently ahead of their respective average. The overall crop is rated 50% good to excellent, 30% fair, and only 14% poor, which is encouraging. Now, a bit of well-received industry news comes from the National Cotton Council, which is collaborating with both the Cotton Foundation and Mississippi State University to establish the Don Parker Memorial Cotton Foundation Endowed Scholarship. Dr. Don Parker, he passed away last October, but he served the National Cotton Council from 2007 to 2023, first as manager of integrated pest management and later as vice president technical services and as executive director of the Cotton Foundation. Now, that's where I got to know Don best, through his role with the Cotton Foundation. But he dedicated his career to advancing ag education, promotion, and inclusivity within the ag industry. He also championed the cause of underrepresented minorities, recognizing their immense potential to shape the future of farming. Don was well known throughout the U.S. cotton industry. He was a great friend of Cotton Grower Magazine and a frequent guest on Cotton Companion podcast. This scholarship seeks to provide permanent financial support to deserving students who aspire to achieve degrees in ag-related programs. Now, there are 2 tax-deductible opportunities which currently exist to honor Don's work through either individual contributions or larger endowments. And you can find more about those, and you can find online contact information for the Mississippi State MSU Foundation in the article about Don Parker Memorial Scholarship at cottongrower.com. Now, I'll say, Jim, briefly, I was at the Cotton Foundation the Cotton Foundation annual meeting when Don introduced this idea to the stakeholders in the Cotton Foundation. This was summer of 2022. And let me say, I know this is a tricky topic. People have strong opinions about inclusivity efforts and diversity and things of that nature. And Don knew this too. But, Don was also aware, like it or not, cotton as a brand does carry some baggage with respect to race in this country among certain sectors. I've seen it here in Memphis, anecdotally, recently this past year, talking to a young man at the FedEx trying to have some signage printed for the Gin Show downtown, Jim, and signage, of course, referenced Cotton Grower Magazine and the Cotton Achievement Award that we were giving out that day. And just kind of apropos of nothing, the young fellow behind the counter at FedEx, young black man, unprompted brought up cotton's history in relation to slavery. And I know that that's an anecdote, but it happens. And I bring it up only to say that that feeling exists among certain people. So what can we do? I could have sat there and, told the young fellow why his feelings were nonsensical or invalid, but that wouldn't have done any good. The fact is, cotton has this connection with its brand, and arguing with somebody about why it doesn't make sense for them to feel that way doesn't do any good. What does help with your brand as other people think about cotton just generally is stuff like this that Don understood. Establishing a scholarship for minority students here in Mississippi. The program's through Mississippi State University, so more likely than not, I would assume students are going to be coming from Mississippi or elsewhere in the South, and offering young people an opportunity, in addition to being a good thing to do, it gives you a chance to say, listen, we're being intentional about combating this baggage that people feel about the product that we produce, and we're taking steps, being intentional about having something that we're doing. So aside from that, Mississippi per capita, probably one of the blackest states in the country, and agriculture is the main economic driver throughout the state. So the program just makes a whole lot of sense. If there is a young student coming up in the Mississippi Delta, where I'm from, for instance, who takes an interest in the farms that they see around them every day, here's a program that can offer them opportunity. And I just want to, Don was smart to introduce this idea. It takes a little bit of bravery to broach this topic. And he stood there in that room and introduced it and stood behind it. And I just think it's a really smart thing that they are doing. And yeah, I would just want to applaud everybody who was involved here, the Cotton Foundation, Mississippi State.
Cotton Council.
The council, of course.
Yes, of course.
So as a final note, just as an addendum on that program, the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol picked up a familiar name, Carhartt, as its newest member. So applause to Carhartt and the Cotton Trust Protocol as well.
Okay, because I agree with everything you said about the scholarship. When the news came across my desk and everything, I thought, well, this is just a great program. If you could stand at your desk and applaud, I was definitely doing that. And in terms of Carhartt joining the trust protocol, I'd be willing to bet you'd be hard pressed to find a farm that doesn't have some sort of Carhartt gear on it. So glad to have them in the fold in terms of the trust protocol.
It makes sense brand wise.
It makes perfect sense.
My stepdad, the 30-year manager of a mostly cotton operation in the Mississippi Delta, his closet looks like Homer Simpson's closet, except it's just Carhartt shirts rather than the whites, the Carhartt little patch on every single shirt that he owns. So yes, this partnership makes a lot of sense.
It's hard to wear those out.
Yeah,
it really is. And now straight from the final turn row of his research projects in Jackson, Tennessee, it's time for our annual visit with Dr. Larry Steckel, University of Tennessee Extension Weed Specialist, as we discuss some issues, challenges, and potential opportunities impacting cotton weed management. Well, we're sitting at Jackson, Tennessee, out in the middle of research plots at the University of Tennessee Research and Extension Center, and for the annual weed field day. And visiting with us again, as usual, it's become an annual event.
It has.
Is Larry Steckel, who's Extension Weed Specialist for University of Tennessee. Larry, how's the season going so far?
Well, they've all of them, 20 plus years now I've been doing this, have been interesting, but this one has in its own right. April was actually pretty good planting weather, and we got a lot of early crop planted, and then May turned around and it rained and it rained and it rained and it rained. And so we're going to start harvest early, and we're going to go clear to frost, just because it's such an elongated planting season. And then the poor cotton crop, we were set to have probably 300,000+ acres of cotton, and we'll be lucky to have 200 now, I think, maybe 150. I got call after call on how you kill, cotton that I planted soybeans into, because the cotton stand was crummy, and I planted soybeans in. The problem with cotton is it's hard to do anything with once it gets 4 or 5 leaves on it. It's That's about right. Indestructible, but trying to jump on it earlier is the thing to do. But
I'm sure from a weed scientist perspective, you like seeing all these flush of weeds out here.
Oh yeah, well that's what I pride myself on, is growing weeds. I can do that typically. Now I had some places here this year I was a little disappointed in my weed pressure, but they were fields that we've done continuous corn in and looked at a lot of pretty robust corn programs, and that's probably a take-home point. If you can run corn a couple years with the herbicides we have and be pretty aggressive with them, you can knock the population back to where it's not as big a deal in your soybeans and cotton. But Lord knows that's not going to be the issue this year, because we've got soybeans everywhere. Yeah. So we're not going to have rotation. Our rotation, a lot of fields, are going to be soybeans. So we're going to see more issues and a lot more pressure on things like Liberty and dicamba and 2,4-D than we would have otherwise.
So what are the problem weeds we're seeing out here early this year?
Well, early on in this thing, it's ryegrass. A lot of ryegrass issues, just a lot of struggling trying to burn it down. And so, I've been more taking a page from my colleagues at Mississippi State of maybe looking at some fall-applied stuff and earlier burn downs with clethodim and that sort of thing. That's kind of the route. The Roundup's just longer doing anything. So that was early on. More recently, it's been wet. They couldn't get in the field, and they've had these absolute jungles to try and burn down in our no-till. I mean, knee-high pigweed, goosegrass, barnyard grass, and in some cases volunteer corn that was tasseling. It's like, oh my gosh! I was just telling them, can't you get the disc out? Because I just don't know a real good herbicide to try and program that's going to be consistent.
The cure of last resort.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a lot of them gone to herbicides. We'll see how it goes.
Well, you mentioned fall application right after harvest and everything. What is that? How common is that at this point?
Well,
as part of a normal production rotation.
Well, it's not. It would be a brand new thing for us here in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they've been more adapting to it in Mississippi because they've had to. They had the Roundup-resistant ryegrass biotype before we did. So they've gone to that, and I think it's fit their system pretty well.
Yeah.
But they're flat, and so that's one of my concerns. We're not flat on most of our ground. We got all these rolling hills, and it doesn't hurt to have a few henbit and chickweed and things like that holding the earth together.
Right.
So kind of looking at mixes and matches of things we could use. We looked at Command because they've had some good luck with it. Dual Boundary, which is dual and Semicor. Some other things that pyroxasulfone, Zidua, that sort of thing. And it was kind of interesting. This last year we put those studies out and it was bone dry. And so the only one that even remotely worked was pyroxasulfone, was Zidua and Anthem, the pyroxasulfone herbicide products. They don't need much water to get activated, and it showed. But then we got a pretty good rain event come in, and Command reached back and got that ryegrass that was 4, 5, 6 inches tall. It was amazing. Turned it white and purple and blue and took it down. So those would probably be the kind of the go-tos, but Zidua would be, plus side with it is you can plant any crop behind it and not be a big issue. Downside with it is the cost. Command, the cost isn't so bad, but you're more roped into soybean. You can't go with corn after it. So.
Yeah, I was about to ask, with the fall application, what kind of rotational impact are you going to have?
It's 12 months, so yeah, you're just about knocked out of everything. Really, what you dedicated to soybeans at that point. So, so anyway, they're going to have pluses and minuses. Barring that, then probably earlier burn downs based around clethodim and not glyphosate are the ways to go.
Yeah, now we've talked in the past about metabolic resistance. Still seeing more and more, or is it kind of leveled off a little bit at this point?
Well, I think it's definitely in the mix and causing more of an issue. We're folks in Arkansas, I think, have pretty much definitively been able to document it. We haven't documented it so much over here, but there's a lot of symptoms that would suggest that it is in the mix on some of our, particularly our pigweed populations. More in the counties that border Arkansas is where we're seeing them. Maybe a shorter shelf life on things like the Group 15 herbicides, Dual, Warrant, Outlook, those type herbicides. Not so much on Zidua, but the other three seeing, and it's not like they're going to zero. They're still providing, almost 3 weeks of control, but they used to be better than that. So I think we're seeing some of that in there. The other thing is the HPPD resistance has been shocking to me. Last year where folks had bad pigweeds and they rotated the corn, I went and bought them in the fall, and boy, there's a lot of pigweed in those cornfields, and I don't see them out here, in my field, so I was wondering what. So we went back this spring, and we did some rate studies, and we looked at Armazon or impact, and we kind of based it plus or minus the 3/4 of an ounce. That's the 1X rate in corn. And in areas in that river bottom that really almost never have corn planted to it, we went up to 3 ounces of Armazon, and I couldn't hardly tell we sprayed it. And that's got to be metabolic resistance. It couldn't be targeticide. We don't spray HPPD, so it's being footballed in with something else. That would be my guess on that. Some of the 2,4-D dicamba resistance, I really kind of thought it was metabolic based, and we just got some of the results from the researchers at Colorado State that are doing the mechanism of resistance in it.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, it looks like metabolic is in the mix. So the susceptible biotype of pigweed they had, it took it 5 days to detoxify the dicamba. Ours, it took 4, so it detoxified it a little quicker. That's not a huge difference, but it was some difference. But also, it's with all these auxins, everything's got to be complex, and the resistance mechanism apparently is too. So there's a bunch of different plant hormones that upregulate when dicamba is applied. Our biotype, that's mitigated. They don't upregulate like a susceptible one does. So there's a bunch of things coming together that are making dicamba and 2,4-D not as effective as they were 5 years ago.
Right. One of the things I really like about this tour is you get a chance to take a look at some of the new products that may not be labeled yet or are just getting ready for label.
Yeah.
What do we see out here this time?
Well, probably the two that come most to mind right off are two that are hopefully be here shortly, but they're kind of the next generation PPO inhibitors. Rapidacil from one, from Valent, and Veraxor from BASF are the two. And they're kind of in that sharpen type category, the next generation, really good on things like mare's tail, that sort of thing.
Is it primarily burned down products?
Burned down products. They'll be non-selective right now. But there is work to get soybeans, maybe cotton too, but I know soybeans for sure that have tolerance or resistance to high rates of PPO herbicides. So those things are ongoing. Some of the precision technology that's coming online where we can maybe spray weeds and not crop, some non-selectives in crop might be something that we can do in the future. Be several years down the road, I think, but I think I'll be retired by then. But anyway, it's nice that we got something out there, because all I got right now, if you want to do that, would be Gramoxone.
Yeah.
And all the noise you hear about it, you wonder how long we can get to keep that herbicide.
Yeah. And we've got, we've talked about Elite 27, which I understand may be getting a new name.
Yes.
And we're still waiting on the registration for that.
Yes.
We have registration, I'm pretty sure, for Zalo.
Zalo just got registered. Yeah, that premix of Assure or Clozafop and glufosinate or Liberty. And it's a newer one that got registered. It sure is. Probably a newer herbicide in corn would be that Maverick. That's from Valent. It's looked pretty good, but that's pyroxasulfone with the chlorpyrrolate or stinger, and it's looked really good out there. Yeah.
Well, it's good that we're looking at some new stuff at this point, primarily because right now, obviously, EPA is looking at label changes and revisions, and new applications or updated applications are sitting there for dicamba products, for acephate. It's kind of a critical point right now for a lot of these existing products.
Yeah.
And we've got some deadlines coming up, I believe, in terms of public comment and things like that. What do growers need to do?
They need to start becoming letter writers. If they haven't yet, get some letters in there. People may not realize it, but they hold a lot of weight if they're coming from growers. Or even folks that advise growers, and because I don't know if probably nobody's got on there but me, has time to go in there but me. But I get lucky. You look at a lot of those labels or a lot of those comments that come in from some of the groups, some of the environmental groups, and they're just form things that say, I hate this herbicide, or they're just three. I mean, a lot of them are 4 or 5 words strung together. But if you just put in a few sentences about how this is vital for production agriculture on your farm, in your program, keeps your family farm sustainable. That goes a long way to helping us keep these herbicides and pesticides really, and then also invariably now we're going to have these new herbicide labels are going to have to come with things to help mitigate, keep them on the field and not be a problem in the environment, and suggestions of things that the farmers can do. And a lot of them they're doing now, and they need to take credit for it. So that's why I bring this up. Swath control. I mean, that's a remarkable technology. Almost everybody has it on their sprayer. They're not double spraying ends and stuff. And that's a big deal, but they don't get any credit for it. But that needs to be added as a mitigation, as a point in their favor of, they're stewarding these products. And no-till that we're doing here is one that we're doing. I mean, there's a lot of things we're doing now. They just need to kind of blow their own horn and make sure the EPA knows they're doing it, and make sure they get credit for it.
Is EPA getting out and looking at some of these plots in response to? Are they coming out to kind of get themselves educated a little bit more about some of this?
They have. So we've had them here in Tennessee now. We had them last summer on a tour. They looked at a lot of our plots here. They went out and we talked to a bunch of farmers in the state, kind of what they're doing, brought up a lot of these very issues, swath control and no-till and all that. And I know they've gone to Georgia, they've gone up in the Midwest, Iowa, so they are getting out and kind of getting, at least kicking some clods and seeing kind of the struggles we have,
right?
And what mitigation things they can add. Keep the family farm sustainable. It's got to work in those production systems that they're being shown. So, and I think I think they, to their credit, the EPA folks, there's a lot of hardworking folks there. I know a lot of people want to fuss about them, but when you get to know them, they really want to do what's best for the growers, but also keep critical habitat safe.
Yep.
And I think there's a way we can do that without throwing all the pesticides out.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get there.
It's almost a thankless job. They're kind of caught in the middle between.
They are. I wouldn't want
forces.
their job for anything. So, but I got a lot of good folks. I've really enjoyed visiting with a lot of them.
Yeah. Great. Well, Larry, it's been good to visit with you again. It was a little warmer today than it was last year.
It was. It sure was.
But we all survived. We
did. We've had warmer days for wheat tour, but it's been a while. This has been going on 50 years, so I've only been here for not quite half of it, but it's good. We get good crowds. So
yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, Larry.
Thank you.
I'll see you probably here in a couple months for the cotton tour.
I imagine. Yeah, I'll be here.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
So, all right. That's it for this episode of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to say thanks again to Dr. Larry Steckel for joining today's discussion. We want to thank also the American Cotton Shippers Association for their continued support and sponsorship of the Cotton Companion. And as always, we want to say thank you, dear listener, for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. And if you do like what you've heard, please be sure to spread the word and tell your friends about the Cotton Companion podcast. Here's where and how they can find us.
You can find the Cotton Companion in 3 easy ways. First, go to cottongrower.com/companion, or simply click the podcast tab at the top of the homepage. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts these days. And 3, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-News, that's delivered to your email inbox every Tuesday morning. You can do that by going to cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Cotton Grower on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter. And on Facebook, you'll find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine.
Cotton Companion Podcast is produced twice monthly by Tyler Hatch and Kim Henderson, our talented colleagues at the world headquarters for Meister Media Worldwide in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. I'm Jim Stedman. He's Beck Barnes. And we'll be back with you in a few weeks with the next episode of the Cotton Companion. Until then, have a safe and enjoyable 4th of July holiday.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works all